Hello and welcome. Today I am going to demonstrate why processes are just as important to your business as cash flow forecasts and profit and loss, and why they're particularly important during times of great change. For example, when you have processes and systems to support them, you have teachable, repeatable processes that anyone can follow, and clear processes help you make clear and calm decisions quickly. In addition to those two, once you know your processes, you can begin to automate various elements. Before I move on to the processes and the automation, please allow me to explain a little bit about my background and why I think processes are so valuable to businesses. My name, as you can see, is Louise Lee, and I haven't always been founder at Saunders & Lee. I started my career in this incredibly unassuming 1960s tower block, and I was private secretary at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. I was in this building for a couple of years before we moved to our swanky new office on the banks of the Thames, and I'm guessing that this picture gives you a better idea about where it was that I worked. When I first started, our processes were quite manual, and we did have a typewriter in every office. We did have computers, not like this one though, they were cranky old wangs, and so occasionally the computer system would go down. When that happened, our floor messenger, a real person who delivered pieces of paper, would deliver a pink memo telling us to revert to fallback procedures. And that meant we dragged out our trusty typewriter and we could still communicate with the rest of the world by telegram. And it wasn't just fallback procedures that had a process. Every role, every job had a Bible, and we were responsible for maintaining that Bible. The Bible contained all of the information, all of the processes about how to do a job, and there were two reasons why this was important. When everyone went home at the end of each day, the duty officer would come on duty. And the duty officer would have been a former head of service, and so although they had a vast knowledge, what they didn't know was how to do my job. And so if there was an emergency, they needed to have access to my Bible, and they could then perform my job, which meant I would rarely get called in on a Saturday night. The duty officer could deal with the emergency, because they knew the process. Now the second benefit was that we moved jobs every 3 years, and so that level of staff turnover, you are losing a lot of information with every staff change. However, it was your responsibility to update your Bible, to update your processes and hand them over to your successor. You'd have a 1-week handover and you'd work through the processes with them to ensure they were up to date. 3 years later, the Bible would be updated again, and so it went on. And then I left the Foreign Office, and I realised that every organisation I subsequently worked for didn't have a Bible. They didn't have a set of processes to follow, and yet the benefits are immense. And so I got to thinking, well, it's not just large government organisations that have that level of processes, surely. And then I thought about McDonald's. McDonald's have processed the socks off everything to do with their business, and they sell them. They sell those processes to folks who'd like to have a McDonald's franchise. And what this means for the franchise holder is that they can open their business on day one. We'll forget about the supply chain side of things, but they can open their business on day one, and they've got a process manual that tells their employees exactly how to do everything. And so when your employee Bert receives his first order of a Big Mac, he can tell Bill at the back to start making a Big Mac. But if Bill has never seen or made a Big Mac, the order might go out looking like this now world famous Big Mac fillet of fish nugget McFlurry burger. However, you don't need to worry about that because McDonald's has it covered, because they create make sheets. So, you've got your burger buns lined up in front of you. Burgers are coming off the griddle on the left and all the ingredients are in containers in front of you. All you have to do is follow these make sheets so that every single burger you produce looks like the same burger whether you are buying it in Australia or the United Kingdom. These make sheets ensure that McDonald's burgers look the same throughout the world, and therefore they are maintaining brand uniformity just because of this one process. And it's not just make sheets. McDonald's have created a process flow, a flow unit, or a customer as we might call them. The customer arrives at the drive-in or the walk-in, they place their order, and there is a process chart to show exactly what needs to happen to get that order out of the door looking like a McDonald's meal. McDonald's have created a raft of teachable and repeatable processes which they sell. Now let's take the humble cup of tea as an example. If I'd never seen a cup of tea and I didn't know what one looked like and I didn't know what the product should be and someone gave me these 5 ingredients and said, please go make me a cup of tea, I wouldn't know what to do with them until someone puts them into a clear process. So we know that in step 1 you boil the kettle, in step 2 you put the tea bag in and you pour hot water on it. Now for those of you thinking we've missed out a step and that milk should have gone in at step 1A, you're very wrong, because we can quite clearly see that the milk goes in at step 4. And so you add the hot water, you give it a stir, and at number 3 you allow it to steep at step 4 and we put the milk in, we give it a squish, take the tea bag out and we have a delicious cup of tea. If we hadn't got those processes mapped out in front of us, I would still be staring at 5 ingredients on the countertop, and not having that delicious cup of tea. And so the benefit of teachable, repeatable systems is that they ensure your team know what to do at all times and they keep work flowing smoothly. But processes do more than that. They give your brain somewhere it can rest while another part of your brain decides what to do next. We've all had a friend turn up on the doorstep with a problem, and the first thing we do is make a cup of tea. And we do that because, yes, it's a nice thing to do, but as you're making it, you're having a think about how to deal with the problem that's just presented. And meanwhile, you're making that delicious cup of tea because you know the process. And so coming back to the subject of this video, which is about achieving clarity in times of great change, we need to think about how our brains work. And I recommend reading The Organised Mind by acclaimed neuroscientist Daniel Levitin. In the book, Daniel explains that there are 4 modes in which your brain operates. So we have the mind-wandering mode, the central executive mode, the neural switchboard, and the attentional filter. We're going to focus on the top 2, starting with the central executive mode. Your central executive mode is what keeps you on task and in deep thought and concentration. And your ancient self would have used this mode for fighting, fleeing, and hunting. In contrast, your modern self uses the same part of the brain, the same mode, for different deep thought work like driving and working, your everyday work. All those tasks that require you to stay focused. When there is great change, your ancient and modern executive are in conflict with each other. Your ancient self is trying to decide whether to fight, flee, or hunt, and your modern self is saying that you need to be working, head down, focused on deep thought, anything that drives revenue. And so there's a constant conflict between the ancient and modern way of using the central executive mode. And if that's not enough to contend with, you also have a mind-wandering mode. Now this is your brain's default mode, where your brain goes to rest and where you have big creative thoughts. Now the only problem is that this mind-wandering mode, it can happen at any time and you have no control over it. Take yesterday morning, for example. I was walking the dog and running through this presentation in my head while making some notes on my phone. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted the brightest red poppy amongst a sea of concrete. Off I trotted to take a poor quality picture, and once I'd done that, I'd got no idea what I'd been thinking about. Except I did, because I have a simple process to follow. My process when preparing a presentation is to always make notes. It's very simple. And so instead of taking the picture and kidding myself that I'd just had a great idea which, well, I'd now forgotten, I was able to look at my notes on my phone and remind my central executive mode what it should be doing, and the great thing was I wasn't left with a nagging feeling that I'd had a great idea and totally forgotten about it. And so the eminent neuroscientist Dr. Levitin also explains that when it comes to our brains, we have another thing to contend with: our memory. Dr. Levitin says that the conscious mind can only pay attention to about 4 things at once, and these 4 things compete with neural resources and distract you from the stuff you're actually trying to do, like getting your work done. So not only is your central executive ancient and modern fighting with each other, you've also got your mind-wandering mode to distract you, and you can only pay attention to 4 things at once. Things aren't looking great here, and so the less eminent Louise Lee says that to create calm out of chaos, don't try and remember anything. Instead, process the socks off everything and give your brain the freedom and space to breathe. And that's what processes give an organisation or an individual. They allow your mind to wander with complete confidence because you have teachable, repeatable processes and systems in place that tell you the status of every project, lead, invoice, delivery date, or anything else to do with the operations of your business. And so we've looked at how McDonald's makes money and creates brand uniformity from their processes. And Dr. Leviton has demonstrated how and why processes help your brain manage the conflict between its modern and ancient central executive mode. And now it's time to look at how processes actually help you grow your business. For small businesses, in my opinion, there are two choke points when they're growing. The first choke point is the business owner. We'll call him Boxhead. So this Boxhead is, in a small business, the finance director, operations director, marketing director, and everything else to do with their business. They are the business owner. And this one person has all of the information in their head. And so if they want to delegate or they want to outsource, one of the first things they will often say is, I don't have time to explain. It's just quicker for me to do it myself. And yes, they are correct, but they are correct on one occasion only. Because if they've written out or recorded what the process is, they can explain the process and it becomes a teachable, repeatable process. The second choke point is when Boxhead number 1 goes out and finds other people to fulfill those functions. And so now we've got 5 Boxheads performing finance, operations, marketing, business development and sales. And unless those Boxheads update the Bible in the same way that I used to at the Foreign Office, the processes will become out of date, and then it makes it much more difficult to either hire or outsource someone to begin to assist with these functions. Now, I mentioned earlier about brand uniformity and that the make sheets at McDonald's ensure every single order goes out of the door, whether in Australia or the UK, and that they go out looking identical. Within your business, you can create the same. You can create a consistent tone of voice, and you do that with document templates and email templates. And so processes don't just keep work flowing, but they maintain that consistency and that uniformity for your brand. I've discovered that there are 5 steps that really set small businesses up to create their processes, and I'm going to go through those steps now, and at the end I'll give you a link so that you can access the program online, which is free. It just digs deeper into each of these 5 steps, because to do that now, well, we'd be here for some time yet. And so I will give you an intro to each of the 5 steps, and then you can go away and look at the other videos and downloads to support it. So, step number 1. What do you do on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly and annual basis as a business owner? What tasks do you have to do to keep your business running? As you make a note, think about whether only you can do it or whether you could outsource it, whether you could get somebody else to do it. You don't have to do anything else other than this. At the moment, you are simply creating a list of tasks that you perform and deciding whether you have to do them or perhaps someone else could do them. Step 2 is about using folders as signposts. As organisations grow, filing structures tend to become more and more chaotic. Small business on the whole can do with probably 5 or 6 top tier folders that maybe mimic the departments in an organisation, so finance, marketing, operations. And so you've got those 5 top tier folders because you want to have as few top tier folders as possible. And then when someone clicks on that folder, it reveals a set of subfolders. And what you're actually doing is creating signposts from those folders. You're directing somebody to either find or file the document they need. For example, imagine you get to a road junction and there are 27 options that you can take. 27 roads! That's an impossible choice. However, if you only had 5 options, it would make your choice far easier, far quicker, and so with only 5 options you know exactly where to go to find or file those documents. Number 3 is about manipulating the software. Now, all document storage software like OneDrive or Dropbox will order your folders in alphabetical order, and your email clients, well, they'll do the same. So Google Mail or Outlook, they will all file in alphabetical order. However, I don't want to see those folders looking like that. I want to see them in this order, because this makes logical sense for my brain and my workflow. Simply by prefacing each folder name with a number, the folders are suddenly shown in exactly the order that I want to see them, and what this does is, it means my brain doesn't have to stop and think about what it's doing, just like with the folder structure for your document filing. Every time your brain has to think, it has to make a decision, and that makes it tired. And so simply by prefacing each folder name with a number, the folders are shown in the order that I want to see them. My brain doesn't have to stop and think what it's doing. I know where everything is, and so there's no stopping or blocking. The workflow continues. Step 4. Now, I'm afraid there are several step 4s, so hang on in there and I will rattle through them. But All of these steps in step 4 is about time and money. And so the first step is to record where you spend your time. As a business grows, it becomes more and more important to outsource as much of the non-revenue generating work as possible. For example, let's say I needed to create some social media graphics and I end up spending all day on them. And yet, if I'd been working on client work, I could have perhaps earned the business several £1,000s. And I could have had a graphic designer create these social media graphics for, let's say, £500. The designer would have taken half the time, it would have cost me a lot less money, and the graphics would have been so much better. So begin to make a note of where you spend your time so that you can begin to see where you are actually losing your business money. The next step 4 is all about hard landscaping your diary. As an example, let's take this one day. And imagine I received an email at 7:30 in the morning asking me if I can go into the city to do a presentation at 1 o'clock. Because I've hard landscaped my diary, I can make better, more informed choices about whether I can or can't commit to doing that presentation at 1 o'clock in the city. And so what do? I have a look and I can see that in my diary that I'm going to be processing emails, checking social media, and those I can do on the train if I have to. The bank rec, well, that can wait until tomorrow. And likewise in the afternoon, I can respond to emails and check social on the train as well. And that blog, well, I know that doesn't need to be posted for another week, and so I can schedule that for maybe 2 days' time. Now, when it comes to the client work, I have a project management software that supports everything that's going on in my business and my clients' businesses. And that piece of software is called Asana. And so I log into Asana, and that tells me all of the tasks that are scheduled for me today. I can look back at those tasks and decide whether only I can do them, or perhaps I can delegate them to someone else. You remember step 1 was working out what you do and whether someone else can do it. This is why. So can I delegate them to someone else? If I can, then I go into each task within the software and I make a note of what I want that person to do. I reallocate the task to them with today's date as the due date. If I can't defer it or delegate it, then I need to do it. And so once I've delegated and deferred everything, I've got a clear list of what needs to happen today, and I can allocate the appropriate amount of time to do it. That turns out to be a couple of hours, which means I can turn up for the 1 o'clock presentation, and I can do it knowing that everything is under control in not just my business, but my clients' businesses as well. But unless I'd actually hard landscape my diary, and unless I knew everything that had to be done today, I wouldn't have been able to defer or delegate. And so hard landscaping your diary means that you can make much better business decisions when things perhaps take a tumble. The next step 4 is about creating templates. And think about those McDonald's make sheets as I'm talking about the templates. I create templates for absolutely everything that I am going to do more than once. You'll remember I also mentioned that it creates a consistent tone of voice, and that tone of voice, well, it can be yours as the business owner, or perhaps you've got a copywriter to help you, but what it means is that every email that leaves your organisation has the same tone of voice, and that's really important when it comes to brand uniformity and saving time. I don't want to have to sit and draft a number of very similar emails. If I've got a template, I can use that as my skeleton, as the bones of the email, and then I can personalise it top and bottom. Now, this isn't about automating everything so that your clients feel as if they're part of an email automation system. It's about saving you time so that you're not constantly redrafting the same email over and over again. And another benefit is, let's say you hire in a temp and you want them to send out 60 welcome guides or a variety of other emails. You can direct them to the email templates, give them the details of who you want them to send the emails to, and that's it. The process is as simple as that because you've created your templates, you've got that teachable, repeatable system. The last step in step 4 is about keeping a list of FAQs. If I'm constantly being asked questions by my team, then it means that either the processes aren't clear or I'm not communicating clearly with them. If my clients are asking me questions, then again, it means either the processes aren't clear or I'm not communicating clearly with my clients, and both of those things need to be addressed. And the only way I can do that is by keeping a note of the questions that I'm asked. Now, I don't mind being asked questions, but if I want to be head down working on something, then I don't want to be frequently interrupted with how do I, how long does it, where is it? Keeping a list of FAQs means that you can stop having questions frequently asked of you. You can keep those questions in a list. If they become repetitive, if there's a pattern, you can ask your team to investigate and say, look, why does the clients keep coming back to me and asking me this? Why are you asking me this? What's failing in the processes? What's failing in the systems that support the processes? You've got a point of interrogation, which is your processes and your systems. Step 5 brings it all together. So in step 1, we looked at what to delegate, whether only you could do it or whether someone else could do it. We looked at recording the processes for those tasks, and once you've got the processes, it will give you an idea about what can and can't be automated. You might not know what can be automated, but an expert will. I spoke about Asana, the project management software that allows for clear communication between me and my team. And all of that information means I can hire the correct folk to do the tasks because I know what the tasks are. I know how to do them. I know what skills are required. When you have all of this information, you can then create your outsourcing plan or your hiring plan. Now, to support all of that, I use a lot of software. And these are the 9 that I recommend. I call them my starter pack because I think these give you a really good introduction to begin your automations. And it's your automation that is going to save you time and create that freedom and space to allow your brain to breathe. There are some QR codes in here which will give you links to free versions except 0. And so you're very welcome to screenshot those and go and grab them. So let's start with my project management software, which is Asana. I really couldn't run my business without it. Asana keeps track of everything in my business and everything to do with my clients. And because everything is in there, it means I know what's going on. I have a bird's eye view. And so when it comes to my diary, for example, I can look to see what client work is taking place and delegate or defer it if necessary. I do recommend you having a look at a project management software. Asana might not be the right one for you. There are some specialist software for specialist areas like building, that type of thing. But project management software is a necessity. Next is screen recording software. You'll have heard me during the course of this video talk about recording your processes, and that's exactly what I mean. Now, I do use Camtasia, but that comes with a relatively high price tag. But to start with, these two, Loom and a PowerSoft, will work really well. So what are you going to use a screen recorder for? Well, when I said recording your processes, I literally did mean record them. If you are doing a task and the task is at your computer, then take a screen recording and do a voiceover or talk to the screen as you're performing the task, because if you're doing the task already, you might as well record it, and then you've got the beginnings of your process manual or your Bible. And using a screen recorder means you don't have to make detailed written instructions, so it doesn't actually take you any longer to delegate this task. You've done it once, you've recorded it, and so it becomes a teachable, repeatable process. Now on to the sexy stuff, the automation. And Zapier is the piece of software that glues everything together. It links all of the other software. I use HubSpot as my CRM, and if in HubSpot I click that I have successfully won a new deal, clicking that button tells Zapier that it needs to do something, because Zapier knows I've told it to tell Xero to create a new contact record and a new deposit invoice. Now, both of those things would take maybe 15 minutes. But all I've had to do is click a button in HubSpot and Zapier has taken care of the rest. Now, because I've just won a new project or a new deal, that means I will need to have a new project in Asana. And so the moment that I click that button in HubSpot, Zapier instructs Asana to create a new project, and Asana, because a new project has been created, well, Asana automatically creates a new task assigned to me with tomorrow's date, telling me that I need to go and populate that new project. I haven't done anything. All I've done is click a button that says I've won a deal, and so far I've got a new contact in my finance package, I've got a new deposit invoice waiting there, and I've got a new project on Asana, all with the click of one button. And each of those probably maybe take 15 minutes, so I'm already starting to save time. This last little bit of kit with HubSpot is contentious. It tracks email opens and alerts you when someone has opened your email. And so, yeah, it is a bit Big Brotherish, and you can use it or not. It's entirely up to you. But for example, maybe you've got a proposal that you've sent to Michael and you desperately want to know when Michael's opened it because you want to phone him and explain some things. When Michael opens the email, you get a pop-up that tells you that he's opened your email. You can then pick up the phone to Michael and ask him if now's a convenient time to talk and has he received your email. You know he's got it, he's reading it right there. And it gives you the opportunity to make that connection at the time that might be right to him. Of course, you might also be met with, would you mind just bogging off for a bit? I'm only just opened your email, I haven't read it yet. So what you do with that is entirely up to you, but it's there if you need it. The next 3 Zaps that I have set up, the first are to do with calendars and booking consultations. Now, I have spent much of my life arranging appointments, and frankly it's tedious playing diary ping pong and not enjoyable at all. Instead, from my website, a prospect can book a consultation, and that button takes you through to Calendly, which is a piece of software that links to my diary. When the prospect books that consultation, Zapier has been instructed to go to HubSpot and create a new deal and a new contact record. Now, I host my consultations in Zoom, and the great thing for me is that Calendly and Zoom integrate without using Zapier. And so what happens next is Calendly and Zoom will automatically send out the invitation. They will include the one-time URL to the Zoom conference, and Calendly will then continue to send automated reminders at predetermined times. I haven't actually done anything yet. My prospect has clicked the button to book a consultation and the software has done everything else behind the scenes. Now the next one is my favourite, and it's my favourite because it involves project numbers. And I love project numbers because they join everything up. When you've got a project number, you can use it to name documents, so you can preface every document with the project number. I tend to use PN-1234. So every document you preface with the project number. Every email, the subject line includes the project number. That project number is searchable across your filing structure and your email structure. And not only that, you can use that project number as a reference in your finance package, which means you can actually then run P&L per project, not just across the business as a whole, but you can run P&L per project because of that project number. What happens with Zapier and project numbers? Project numbers are generated in Trello. Zapier recognises that a new project number has been created, and then it goes to Google Mail and it will create a folder in everybody in the organisation who is related to that project. It will create a new folder in their Google Mail. It will also create a new folder in Google Drive. So what we have now is everybody involved in the project knows where to file their emails because a project folder in their email has been created. Everybody in the project knows where to file project documentation on Google Drive because a folder has been created. And every email and every document that relates to that project contains the project number, and so it is searchable across all pieces of software. These 6 pieces of automation save on average 30 to 60 minutes, and I haven't done anything at all. All I've done is set up the automation. As you can see with Calendly, the first app on the left, because you've booked a consultation, it's created a new contact and created a new deal. You'll remember in the previous slide that with HubSpot you can create new contact and create a new invoice, and so you're starting to create the automation that keeps everything flowing from the time you get a new deal to being successful with that deal. At the beginning of this video, I said that I will demonstrate how processes are just as valuable to your business as your cash flow forecast and your profit and loss. And I've done that by demonstrating not only how processes underpin the growth of every successful organisation, but also how they help you and your team stay on task while you are working in a constantly changing environment, and how those processes allow you to deal with the conflict of your ancient and modern executive modes while still allowing your mind the freedom and space to breathe. And that's what these automations do. They give your mind the freedom to breathe. Without these automations, you remain bogged down in the detail of running your business. And as I mentioned earlier that I would give you a link to the program, here it is, the 5 steps program, which has the spectacular name, the 5 steps you need to scale your business and increase your profits so you're ready to outsource or take on staff and now deal with an ever-changing world. So you are welcome to go and register for that. It's free, there's videos, there's downloads, and each of these 5 steps, obviously I'm going to go into a lot more detail in that program. So thank you very much for joining me today. You are welcome to share this the online program with anyone that you know, and if you have any questions then please do drop me a message. Thank you so much. Bye bye now.